Here's Debrief, your weekly catch-up of the latest top stories on TRT World.
English teams. Sorry.
I guess you left your friend over here. Are you not going to take him with you?
Basically, they're awful teams.
Israel announces a new ground assault in Gaza, aiming to control parts of the Strip.
Among those killed overnight on Saturday were 4 journalists, along with their families.
More than 900 Palestinians have been killed by Israel in the past 10 days.
Another evacuation order for Khan Yunis. The Israeli military is saying that an unprecedented attack is coming.
This evacuation order is literally affecting hundreds of thousands of people.
The latest Israeli offensive, dubbed Gideon's Chariots, is larger and greater than it's ever been before.
The call comes in, another strike, another family buried beneath the concrete.
Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza said all public hospitals in the northern part of the Strip are now completely out of service.
The World Health Organization says the health system is at breaking point.
14,000 babies could die within 48 hours if aid fails to reach communities in Gaza soon.
The supplies needed to treat malnutrition and treat disease haven't got in, and as a result of that, children are suffering and at risk of dying, including babies who are in incubators, infants who are malnourished.
We had info that more than 29 young children, infants and elderly lost their life because of starvation-related issues.
As the UN reports more horrors from the enclave, international pressure is growing.
Spain's parliament passing a non-binding motion calling on the government there to impose an arms embargo. Ireland's prime minister talking about how the world is disgusted. The United Kingdom has suspended its trade talks with Israel.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, end this blockade now.
There is a strong majority in favor of review of Article 2 of our association agreement with Israel.
Everyone realizes it is a profound attack on human dignity.
I renew my heartfelt appeal to allow the entry of fair humanitarian help and to bring an end to the hostilities.
A sane country doesn't fight civilians, doesn't kill babies for fun, and doesn't set its sights on expelling the population.
Humanitarian aid trucks are finally rolling into Gaza after a 78-day blockade imposed by Israel.
Israel claims 100 trucks with baby food and medical aid were let in on Wednesday, but the UN says at most 100 trucks have entered since the start of the week.
The aid authorized until now amounts to a teaspoon of aid when a flood of assistance is required.
I'm trying to express the sadness, really, how human life is treated as worth nothing.
2 people have been shot and killed outside the Jewish Museum in the US capital, Washington, D.C. The victims are staff members of the Israeli embassy, gunned down as they were leaving an event at the museum.
These kind of events only happen because of the bigger conflict.
There has been outrage after Israeli forces opened fire to intimidate a delegation as they approached the entrance of the Jenin refugee camp.
There were diplomats from at least 32 different countries from all over the world.
It's been under siege since January.
This rubble on the ground is part of a systematic demolition project aimed to totally wipe out Palestinian neighborhoods. With a lack of access to medical care and basics to get by, people fear what's happening in Gaza is next for them.
Donald Trump has wrapped up a phone call with Vladimir Putin aimed at seeking a breakthrough to secure a ceasefire.
Moscow didn't say no to the ceasefire, suggesting that it is still possible, provided, however, that certain agreements have been reached.
A Kremlin aide says there's no timeline, while the Russian president says he's ready to work on a memorandum on a possible future peace treaty.
Certainly not the immediate ceasefire that Trump was hoping for.
He wants to be seen as the man who stopped the war in Ukraine. And I think that Putin knows that of him and is just stringing him along without giving any firm commitments to do anything in the wake of this phone call.
If I thought that President Putin did not want to get this over with, I wouldn't even be talking about it, because I'd just pull out.
The US, the EU and Ukraine are demanding an immediate 30-day ceasefire. The widespread analysis is that Moscow is ignoring that call because it holds the upper hand on the battlefield. The problem for Ukraine is that Russia does appear to consider the whole of Ukraine to be a battlefield.
The White Angels are tasked with rescuing civilians living near the front line of this country's war with Russia. There is no time for careful driving here, with threats lurking out of sight. Just days earlier, on this road, a minibus was hit by a Russian drone. At least 9 people were killed.
Because the number of strikes on the city, on the community, has increased dramatically, the number of requests for evacuation has also increased significantly. People who can't leave on their own come to us.
We stay out of the way as the crew enter the home of a disabled elderly couple. They didn't want to leave, but were convinced to by their son. Getting people like her out of danger is a careful but urgent process.
Police that we were just with, the White Angels, have just said that their colleagues have raided them and told them that after we left Villapilia, Russian glide bombs, probably cabs, had hit the town. So we were pretty lucky to get in and out when we did.
And that's not all that happened. We cover the world. Check out these headlines.
Sudan's military said on Tuesday it's in full control of the Khartoum region and has pushed out the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. Despite the territorial turnover, the RSF remains active in other parts of Sudan, and the 2-year-old civil war shows no signs of ending. Accusing the army of using chemical weapons last year, the US on Thursday said it will be imposing new sanctions on Sudan, a move that will make things harder for Sudanese people battling famine, displacement, and instability across the country. The UN calls it the world's biggest humanitarian crisis, with more than 24 million in dire need of assistance. And there's a new roadblock in US President Donald Trump's promise to crush disgraceful, bad apple, woke, pro-Palestine protests at US universities. On Thursday, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem revoked Harvard's ability to enroll foreign nationals, a direct attack on the academic dreams of many students and the university's own bottom line. The decision could affect nearly 7,000 international students, more than a quarter of Harvard's student body. But the Ivy League school is fighting back, updating its April lawsuit filed against the Trump administration's previous attempt to freeze billions in federal research funding.
It's likely that an interim injunction would save those students for now, but this is clearly something that's going to go up to higher court.
Speaking of American government funding, Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill has passed the House.
The One Big Beautiful Bill fulfills President Trump's promises of no tax on tips, which was applauded today by the CEO of Uber, no tax on overtime, a Made in America auto tax break, Trump savings accounts for newborn babies, and substantial tax cuts for our amazing seniors' Social Security benefits.
But the fine print isn't pretty. The bill guts social protections like Medicaid, food assistance, and housing programs. It slashes taxes for the ultra-wealthy and corporations while raising them on the lowest-income Americans over the next decade. It will also add a projected $3.8 trillion to the national debt. It's now up to the Republican majority Senate to vote on the bill. It's a budget made to redistribute wealth upwards and to pull the safety net out from under millions, say some critics.
We would have welcomed the opportunity to work with the Republicans on a bill that strengthens our economy and opens opportunities for all Americans. But that's not what the Republicans are doing.
The UK was done with the EU after Brexit, right? Not quite. Monday saw London signing deals with the bloc on policies once called foreign interference by Brexiters.
EU fishermen getting access to UK waters for the next 12 years, while UK food exports to the EU will have less checks. British food exporters will have to follow EU rules on food, and dispelling the myth that the British like to queue.
Today's deal will also help British holidaymakers, as we're confirming that they will be able to use e-gates when they travel to Europe.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer calls it a win-win. But critics say it looks more like a quiet admission that Brexit broke things, and that slogans aren't better than supply chains.
And we like to give you a taste of some of our programs with Africa Matters, Money Talks, and Sports.
Death of people. Death. Horrible death.
After months of diplomatic tensions, U.S. President Donald Trump confronted South African President Cyril Ramaphosa in the White House on Wednesday, May 21st, with discredited claims of white genocide. The UN defines genocide as any of the following acts committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. And Donald Trump presented a video and news story clippings that he said showed evidence that white genocide and land seizures are happening in South Africa. Ramaphosa politely and calmly refuted the claims.
A lot of people are very concerned with regard to South Africa, and that's really the purpose of the meeting, and we'll see how that turns out. But we have many people that feel they're being persecuted, and they're coming to the United States. So we take from many locations if we feel there's persecution or genocide going on.
Issue of whether what he terms as genocide can be equated to the struggle. And of course it cannot, because there is just no genocide in South Africa.
We're here in Doha for the 5th edition of the Qatar Economic Forum, where I caught up with Turkish Finance Minister Mehmet Şimşek. What were some of your key takeaways of this event?
Typically you would have to travel a lot to meet so many people. So I think it's, within 2 or 3 days, you end up covering a lot of grounds, learning a lot. And it's been great. I mean, in addition to a number of official bilateral meetings, I've had quite a few engagements with business community.
The Tottenham are celebrating a first European title in over 40 years. Spurs are the new Europa League champions. It's a remarkable turnaround considering the poor season they've had.
I always win things in my second season. Ange Postecoglou wasn't lying. Tottenham Hotspur are the champions of Europe after winning the Europa League against Manchester United. The Australian manager has brought Tottenham their first trophy for 17 years. It has been an incredible night to be a Spurs fan here in Bilbao. Over 30,000 made their way, and this will be a night that echoes long in Tottenham Hotspur's history. Brennan Johnson got the only goal. It was scrappy, just like the match. It was a filthy final, but finals are there for winning. For Manchester United, well, it's a painful summer of rebuilding without any European football. But Ange Postecoglou has won a trophy in his second season. Tottenham Hotspur are on top of the world right now, and they're in the Champions League next season.